A decades-old mystery has finally been solved in Lafayette. A headstone randomly pulled from an apartment in the 90s is finally back at its final resting place. But whose is it? Star City's Emily Slater has the story of the Tombstone's long journey.
It's a family reunited and a mystery solved. Well, partially solved.
We have a tombstone for William Kopp, and the tombstone was found in the Tippecanoe County Coroner's Office when they were doing a remodel.
And when the coroner and the health department couldn't find record of Mr. Kopp's death, they called the Tippecanoe Historical Association.
I found a William Kopp, kept coming up in the census from 1860, 1870, 1880, always in Fountain County. I just had a hunch that this was him.
And that's when the Tippecanoe Historical Association's Amy Harbour reached out to colleagues in Fountain County. Kim Morton of the Fountain County Genealogy Society and Library called with a match.
When you're into genealogy and local history, it's always a puzzle, as she mentioned before, and you love to help solve that puzzle.
According to his obituary, William Kopp was a well-known and beloved member of the community here in Attica. So how did his gravestone end up in Lafayette?
We'll dive into William's life and his gravestone's journey back to his final resting place tonight at 10 and 11. Emily Slater, Star City News, Attica.
Earlier this evening, we told you about the rediscovery of a long-lost tombstone that sat collecting dust for decades in the local coroner's office. Well, now tonight, we're learning more about the person it belongs to and how it ended up in Lafayette. Star City's Emily Slater is sharing that history.
William Kopp's 1907 obituary describes him as a man known by practically everyone in Attica. He was from a boating family, making a living off the canal economy that once fueled Attica.
They came to Covington first in 1853 and then Attica, and they built canal boats and ran boats on the canal. William and his brother John Kopp.
William and John lived and worked in Attica for the rest of their lives and were both buried in Riverside Cemetery. But sometime between his death in 1907 and its discovery 90 years later, William's headstone was removed from his grave. A clerical error kept the owner of the gravestone from being identified. He was listed as William Ropp. But now that he's found, it's time for his headstone to be returned. The Tippecanoe Historical Association and the Fountain County Genealogy Society and Library have entrusted Ma's funeral home with the gravestone.
They have said that they will make sure that it gets placed in the cemetery with his family. I know his family was close. He lived his whole life with his brother, near his brother. They worked together.
Without expensive imaging, there's no way to know for sure where in the cemetery William's body is buried. But Amy says she hopes his gravestone is placed with his brother. Ma's funeral home receptionist Bonnie Childress says it's an honor to be trusted in returning William's gravestone.
I know that if it were part of any of our families here, we would want someone to return it back to us so that our loved one would be placed back with their family.
And how did this nearly 120-year-old gravestone end up in a downtown Lafayette apartment?
We will probably never know how it got to Tippecanoe County.
Emily Slater, Star City News, Attica, Indiana.